Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you? How are you doing? It is Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. Time for another show. Another shift in front of the microphone, and then got some work to do today. It's a pickup day for fall break. So headed on out to college campus of choice. Well, there's no choice for me. I mean, there's the one I have to go to pick up, my son. So, that's the one we're going to. But it was his choice to go there. So you get the idea. All right. Plenty of things going on today. It is Tuesday. That means, I don't know if you remember, government shutdown. Yeah, we're 1 month from the deadline. And at the moment, still without a speaker. We'll have to discuss that scenario for today. Looks like they will try to go to the floor with an affirmative vote for speaker today, with Jim Jordan as their nominee. And Greg was telling us yesterday there are a number of holdouts. There's still a number of holdouts, but there are far fewer than there were yesterday. But the leading indicator that Greg gave to us yesterday was to watch what people from the leadership of the House Armed Services Committee do. I forget what else he named, but Armed Services Committee. I suppose also some of the more traditionally, if not bipartisan, then less radically right-leaning committees. I suppose Ways and Means kind of has been lost for a while, but used to be traditionally in that spot as well. Armed Services, Intelligence, to some extent, transportation, but I don't think that was one of the outfits he named yesterday. But at any rate, before a few hours even, if even 1 hour had passed after the end of the show, I got word that that contest was beginning to flip as well, because the House Armed Services Committee chair, what's his name again? I'll go check it out and pull up the message that I sent to Greg as soon as I saw it, that the House Armed Services Committee chair had flipped for Jordan. And that was the order of the day yesterday, as Jordan leveraged everything he had up to and including hints of violence, apparently, by roping in Sean Hannity, who sent the staff around to twist arms and let people know that there's a large portion of the base that's going to want to know exactly why you didn't vote for Jim Jordan for speaker. Nice, district you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it. That sort of thing. And then shortly thereafter, the Jordan camp was able to trot out various holdouts, making their hostage statements that they were going to back Jim Jordan after all. Here's the thing I sent to Greg yesterday. Jordan builds momentum to speakership, but still faces opposition. This was the coverage of The Hill and their staff and sort of their ongoing coverage, but where I stopped and it was this bit here. House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan is gaining momentum as he tries to lock down support for the speakership, but opposition remains. Jordan scored key pickups on Monday when 4 Republicans who had previously opposed him publicly flipped their votes. House Armed Services Committee Chairman Mike Rogers of Alabama, along with Representatives Ann Wagner of Missouri, Ken Calvert of California, and Vern Buchanan of Florida. But at least 6 Republicans do say they plan to vote against the fast-talking, hard-line Ohio Republican, enough to keep him from winning the gavel if all members of the House vote. At the same time, the crisis in Israel has not abated and the U.S. is barreling towards the next shutdown deadline, all while the House closes in on 2 weeks without a speaker. So there you go. The current state of play is that there are still enough Republicans who have not backed off of public statements that they will oppose Jordan's election, that if they vote that way openly in viva voce vote on the House floor today, would deny him the gavel at first pass. Now, they have a couple of options, including just going over and over again like they did with McCarthy and seeing whose arms they can twist. And it looks like the number is such that they would really only have to win over one or two more before they succeeded. And then, of course, there would be the ability to simply ignore the usual requirements and say, well, we'll just proclaim Jordan Speaker by plurality. And it might be the case that even the holdouts there are willing to say, we'll vote for that ruling from the chair. We'll vote to support such a ruling just to get this all over with and without technically casting a vote for Jordan. So, especially when it's in the low numbers there, when there's single digits of opposition, that's a route that they can take. Okay. Now, let's see. There's also this collection of information. Now, Greg answered me with some back channel responses saying, all right, well, there are still some holdouts here. And what did he send me? Oh, yes, the tweet of Olivia Beavers, who says there's still enough no's as of today, that being, although that was yesterday at 6:44, still enough no's as of today to block Jordan from the gavel. Not a complete list here, but she named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Republicans here. Although I'm not certain I know who all of them are. Well, Bacon, Jimenez, Rutherford, Womack, MDB. I'm racking my brain here quick to see if I can figure out who MDB is. I don't know who's won the honor of the three initial thing. I don't know. Who is that even? It doesn't ring a bell for me offhand, but okay. And I guess we'll find out who that is later on and see what happens and whether by the time we figure out who it is, whether that person has flipped or not. Anyway, that's kind of where it stands. I have the feeling that this thing will, work out for them at some point in the near future anyway. And yeah, we're all going to, everybody will be shocked. How could he possibly have won? Besides which, he didn't even get as many votes as Scalise. How could he have, Republicans are getting tired of this game. They want to show that they can put a speaker in place even if they're not particularly happy with that speaker. Let's see. Oh, as a matter of fact, as I'm flipping through looking for that back channel communication on Twitter, which I try not to use or at least not to contribute any content to these days, Jake Sherman tweeting about an hour ago, Jordan in trouble. Let's see if that's the case. That was about an hour ago. There are somewhere between a dozen and 20-something no votes on Jordan's candidacy to be speaker. We'll see about that when they have to vote out loud. Lawmakers tell us they'll drop it off if he doesn't win on the first ballot. That's a possibility, too. We have a deeply reported list on who is in play, who is out as Jordan tried to reach, let's see what's going on here, reach the pinnacle of power. We could look at their deeply reported thing. It's from Punch Bowl. Let's see, what time did they file this? How recent is this thing? I don't think it's going to tell me. All right, we'll click the read more, and let's see. Jim Jordan has problems. Let's see, maybe as many as 20 votes short from winning the speaker's gavel. That's pretty ambitious numbering. I think House Republicans met in the Capitol Monday night, where some lawmakers gave the Ohio Republican an earful, and others had his back. Jordan gave a rah-rah speech saying it's time for Congress to get to work. How do you like that? In the most un-Jordan-like fashion, he told his colleagues they had to pass funding bills, avoid a shutdown, and can't control what the Senate does. This was Jim Jordan, not Kevin McCarthy. Jordan said after the meeting he felt even better than when he walked in. Okay, that might be rah-rah stuff himself. But here we are. Let's see, here's a non-comprehensive list, they say, of Republicans who are either opposed to Jordan, will vote for someone else, or haven't made their position clear. CNN's Haley Talbot has a useful list as well. It's linked herein, but their list begins with Mario Diaz-Balart as a no. Won't vote for Jordan. That's MDB. MDB, as he's referred to, not by me, but okay, is close to Scalise. MDB was put off by how Jordan treated the Louisiana Republican. Then there's Ken Buck, turned off by Jordan's questioning of President Biden's 2020 election victory. Buck told Jordan that he was a no during a one-on-one meeting Monday night, and the Colorado Republican reported as such to CNN. Representative John Rutherford of Florida says he's casting his vote for McCarthy. Don Bacon said he'll vote for McCarthy on the first ballot. Bacon also left open the possibility that he could vote for someone else on a later ballot. Victoria Spartz of Indiana said she doesn't like the process and signaled she'd vote against Jordan. Spartz, however, changes her positions frequently. That's an interesting note. Mike Lawler of New York said he'll vote for McCarthy, but Lawler also said he won't be the deciding vote against Jordan. Carlos Jimenez of Florida says he'll be backing McCarthy, who isn't even a candidate, so we'll see how long it lasts. Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania voting for Scalise. Kelly introduced a resolution that would elect Speaker Pro Tem Patrick McHenry through November 17th when the government funding runs out. And let's see, Marionette. Yeah, that's the actual name. I don't know how does she say it like that though, like the puppet? Marionette Miller Meeks, the second triple M in my book after Marjorie Margolis Mezvinsky, but the current triple M, 3M if you will. From Iowa, said she's undecided, but privately suggested she's a no. In the closed party meeting Monday night, she went down a list of members who criticized her and other Republicans and complained about the pressure tactics employed by Jordan's allies. Miller Meeks said Jordan did nothing to stop the attacks. Jordan reminded Miller Meeks that he'd visited her district twice, which could either be, well, I helped you, I supported you, I campaigned for you, or I know where you live. You tell me what that one means. The undecideds or undeclareds are listed next. David Joyce of Ohio has been cool to Jordan's candidacy, although it'll be very hard to vote against an Ohioan for Speaker. Steve Womack of Arkansas, Blake Moore of Utah, Jen Kiggins of Virginia. What? Who? Lori Chavez DeRemer of Oregon. DeRemer, I don't know. Andrew Garbarino of New York, and Juan Ciscomani of Arizona have yet to say how they'll vote. I don't know any of them. I've heard Steve Womack's name. Everybody else is a total blank to me, including the Virginian. Amazing. Representative Jake Elzy of Texas declined to comment Monday night on how he'll vote. Elzy, a former Navy pilot, strongly opposes government shutdowns. What do you know? Jordan voted against the CR to avoid the October 1st shutdown. Nick LaLotta and Anthony Esposito of New York still undecided. As we've noted, this isn't an exhaustive list, although I'm exhausted just by reading it. And let's see, a useful benchmark they offer here. McCarthy got 201 votes on his first 15 tries to win the speakership in January. McCarthy never dropped below 200 in all 15 rounds. If Jordan doesn't start somewhere in the 200 neighborhood on the first ballot, he's in trouble. And several lawmakers told us that they'd only committed to Jordan on the first ballot. That's interesting too. So something to keep an eye on. Let's see. Furthermore, lawmakers may drop their support for Jordan if it's clear he's losing early in the tally. The tally is conducted in alphabetical order, and Bacon, Buck, and Diaz-Balart come early in the alphabet. Jordan could be close to losing the vote in the first three letters of the alphabet. Okay. And Florida Representative Gus Bilirakis, who is a Jordan supporter, will not be in D.C. for the noon vote. He's expected back in Washington this evening. So we'll see whether they delay things or just delay the second ballot until he gets back or something like that. The contest can easily go to multiple ballots. In fact, many GOP lawmakers and aides expect that it will. But keep in mind that Republicans were willing to go 15 rounds for McCarthy because they liked him. And they really didn't like him. Jordan is not as well liked as McCarthy. So that's of some interest. I think that's good filling in of some remaining blanks here. And Justice has shared a a piece here from Axios about Jim Jordan and his pressure campaign and how he's upsetting certain fellow Republicans with it. Let's see. This from Axios. Julie Grace Brufke. Is that right? Have I got that name correct? Inside the pressure campaign to get Jim Jordan the House Speaker gavel. Might as well read this and prepare for the rest of the day. We'll hit some other highlights, but if we have this as a baseline, then that frees up Joan to explore the angles without having to fill in that baseline. We'll do the baseline work and let her bring in whatever fine detail she may have. Although she may be like, hey, I'm sick of this stupid thing, and Jim Jordan is an a-hole. I don't really care. Just so long as there's problems for him on his way to the speakership, that will be fine with me. And I don't know. It's increasingly looking to me like the Republicans are just caving in their opposition and lining up behind Jordan, despite the fact that he could be disastrous. But, I'm not exactly reveling in the fact that he could be disastrous, because it'll first be disastrous for America, and then maybe later, possibly disastrous for Republicans in the election results. But in the meantime, he could be a big disaster for all of us. Anyway, continuing with the Axios coverage here, GOP Speaker nominee Jim Jordan ramping up the pressure on his critics ahead of the House floor vote on Tuesday. But some Republicans are warning it could leave him exposed to backlash. But they're not really, known for spinal fortitude and backlash against one another. But okay, why does it matter? I don't know. Who cares? Let's leave. Guys, it doesn't. If you have to tell me why it matters, why am I reading the article? But okay, I have always objected to that formatting. Jordan got significantly close to 217 votes on Monday, but there are too many public holdouts to coast to a victory on the first ballot. Two GOP lawmakers said they're less likely to back Jordan on a second ballot, which could further hinder his odds of getting the gavel. Behind the scenes, what are they saying? One House Republican said primary threats have emerged if they don't back the Jordan. Interesting. Do they mean for that? The in there? Is he now like the Donald, the Jordan? With the member arguing that the bullying tactics need to stop. So now they're threatening people with primaries from the right. Jordan spokesman Russell Dye argued that primary threats are totally untrue. So there you go. One person said they're totally true. Another one said they're totally untrue. What else have they got here? There's been a massive push to get House Republicans to unify around Jordan, including calls to member offices, conservative TV hosts ramping up the pressure on skeptics, and MAGA influencers taking aim at hesitant members on social media. But the push has led some members to argue that backing Jordan would be rewarding bad behavior, with one member telling Axios he's playing nice guy personally, but letting attack dogs do the rest. What else? Some members say they're encouraged by the Ohio Republicans' openness to bringing up priorities not traditionally backed by conservative hardliners. Okay. Multiple GOP lawmakers said that Jordan told them he would not block legislation linking Ukraine funding to Israel funding, which a Jordan spokesman denied. So I guess watch out for that. Other members said that Jordan appeared open to bringing a farm bill to the floor. Whoop-de-doo. It's good for the farms, but, the Republicans generally bring farm bills to the floor because they love to dip their hands into the farm cash. Other members said that Jordan appeared to, or open to bringing the farm bill to the floor. Jim seeks my counsel when it comes to agriculture and in where we're at with the farm bill. House Agriculture Chairman G.T. Thompson of Pennsylvania told Axios. A Jordan spokesman told Axios that agriculture is really important to a lot of members, including Mr. Jordan's own district, and we think conversations about agriculture and the farm bill should continue. Wow, is that solid basis for a relationship or what? We think they should continue. Let's see, some intrigue here. GOP moderates say they're concerned. Well, first of all, they're concerned about not existing, but they're also concerned about Jordan's links to former President Trump. And others flagged his ability to fundraise as a weak point. Centrists and frontliners have also voiced a reluctance to back Jordan after his offer to nominate Scalise on the floor only on the first ballot, arguing that the move was disingenuous. The bottom line, centrists looking to withhold their votes from Jordan mentioned the 55 members of the conference who voted on Friday that they would not support him on the floor. Okay. Whatever. I'm not certain exactly whether that was worded correctly, but okay. Jordan allies have argued that moderates will cave amid the pressure, with plans to vote despite Jordan voicing that no one should go to the floor without 217 votes during an appearance on Fox News just days ago. So, all right. All right, I think we have all of the various very likely scenarios laid out. Some of the less likely scenarios, I guess, we could try and review as well. And there are many tucked away in pocket. Although it was an interesting run through the incoming emails today. Although not all of them were related to the speakership, and some of them not even particularly related to politics. I'm curious about, for instance, I try to ignore and usually get rid of, and I got to find the unsubscribe button on this thing that sends me this garbage. But anyway, recommended reads, which I don't even know how I ended up on that. But I mean, it sounds like a good idea for this show, but I don't have time for most of the things they send. For instance, except now I'm intrigued, and this is one of the reasons I want to unsubscribe, is yes, they are very good at writing intriguing headlines that make me say, I think I might want to know what the answer to that stupid question that it poses is, but it doesn't matter for any reason. So today's question, is this the end for fridge magnets? Yes, according to appliance makers, which I guess means that they no longer have magnetic surfaces in the refrigerator doors. And I mean, for the most part, most of my refrigerator door, I guess these stainless steel looking appliances no longer have that. And although the sides of the refrigerator still do. So all my refrigerator magnets, barring just a few that are particularly powerful anyway, are on the side. And I have a large collection of refrigerator magnets, and I don't know, I'm now fretting what to do, except, I'm not planning on getting a new refrigerator anytime soon. So about the time that I get around to an electric car, I guess, I'll be getting rid of all my refrigerator magnets. How could that possibly matter? I don't know why they're filling my inbox with it, but now it's on your mind too. More to the point, though, let's see. I do want to take a look at this Hill story and park it in pocket too, so I can share it with you later. Senate GOP, what are they up to? Well, they're warming, apparently, to the idea of a Speaker Jordan. I guess they see the possible inevitability here. And that's a bad sign, too. Let's see. Senate Republicans, embarrassed by the prolonged stalemate in the House over electing a new speaker, are warming up to the idea of Jim Jordan taking the job in the hopes he'll be able to corral conservative House rebels. And I guess there's more likelihood of that from Jim Jordan, being able to have goodwill with the lunatics and ask them to do something that they ordinarily wouldn't, whereas then, say, Kevin McCarthy did, because they had already pledged to defy him right from the beginning. Anyway, Jordan has long been regarded in Washington as one of the most hardline conservatives in Congress. He founded the House Freedom Caucus, which was a dumb idea. I mean, they're exercising a lot of power. It was a good idea from that perspective. I'm just saying, I'm going to make a thing and call it the Freedom Caucus because freedom. But all we're really going to do is just protest, establishment republicanism and make trouble for them, which, it worked out. I don't know. I'm thinking about when they had to choose a name, and I mean, they couldn't make it the House Chaos Caucus. That would make them look bad. So they went with Freedom Caucus. It's just dumb. Anyway, he played a leading role, of course, in lying about the 2020 election. That's not the way they say it, but that's what they really mean here. Senate Republicans, who were pulling for former Speaker Kevin McCarthy to hang on to his job and then quietly rooted for Scalise to wield the gavel, are now willing to give Jordan the benefit of the doubt. They really have no choice in the matter, but senators say the leadership vacuum in the House is a major problem. It needs to get solved as soon as possible, and they worry that if Jordan can't marshal a majority vote on the House floor, the impasse could last for days, if not weeks longer. We just need an effective speaker. We can't have this nonsense of a handful of people questioning a speaker every time we have to deal with difficult subjects, and we have a lot to deal with. Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina said, I hope that Jim's up to the task. Well, he's not, but, it's a nice thing to hope for. Other people comment, too. Do we really care? I just wanted to sort of get on the record that the Senate Republicans, not that they have anything to say about it, but if they, I don't know, I guess it's an important signal that they send. Oh, yeah, we're warming up to the idea. And, well, okay. Let's see. Other items that have to be at least mentioned. The New York Times is one of the first on the scene with this breaking news report, and it has to be noted. Biden, that's the president of the United States, Biden to visit Israel amid Gaza crisis as fears grow of a wider war. But, the major headline in all of this is, one, visiting Israel, always a headline anyway, and two, visiting Israel in the middle of a war, unprecedented. And so that's obviously going to cause some tremendous concern among the security operation. And I'm sure they're up to it. But yeah, it's like I said, it is unprecedented, and it's also an unprecedented show of support. Very interesting. I did see Greg tweeting this morning saying, it's always the same headline, right? Biden takes a risk joining the UAW picket line. Biden takes a risk on this, that, and the other thing. Now Biden takes a risk on Ukraine. Biden takes a risk on Israel. Lots of risks he's taking, but why not simply admit it? He's showing leadership, for better or for worse.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Hey, our good friend Asparagus Zucchini, Mark Hogue, letting us know via Mastodon. I'm trying to monitor all the social media today. Hey, if you're worried about the huge refrigerator magnet crisis looming in America, tape a magnetic strip to your fridge. Problem solved. True, although one of the great joys of the use of refrigerator magnets is that you could move your items anywhere and make room for more without having to tape magnetic strips all over the place wherever you want to. I'm very big on spontaneity when it comes to the ability to rearrange things held to the front of my refrigerator by magnets, including my long lost and lately lamented NAFTA refrigerator calendar, which no longer serves all the purpose that I was looking for. I'm really going to have to shop more carefully come next year. But I probably won't, and then I'll forget that, and then I'll lament that again. Okay, many other things to get to. I don't know if I want to dive into the actual reporting on the Biden trip to Israel. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what the concerns are. War. But there is more news from that front, which I also should make mention of. And did I put all this away? I think I thought I did, and now I don't see it. And now I have questions about how things are working as between blue sky and pocket. But I did see mention this morning of, one, the deployment of a second naval group, second carrier group into the Eastern Mediterranean as, I was wondering about the first one. I mean, it's sort of a thing you do to generate the headline that the United States is making a show of force here, so that, I guess, in Iran or wherever else you're worried about, there will be people reading headlines that say that there's a show of force going on. Although it was really difficult to understand without further clarification, like what sort of muscles are being flexed by a carrier group in the Eastern Mediterranean with respect to, like, Iran. Like, if you want to threaten Iran, and I guess that's the point, they really don't want to threaten them directly. But if you wanted to threaten Iran, you park your carrier group in the Persian Gulf. But of course, that also exposes you to the possibility of being threatened by Iran, because they can strike at a carrier group, but they won't, because that would risk, regional war and war directly with the United States. You want to try to avoid that if you can. But I was sort of wondering, well, what are they aiming to do with the carrier group? And then to put a second carrier group, that seems like, how many have we got? And, is that an effective placement? But as it turns out, now there's a serious possibility that U.S. troops in a non-combat role, although you got to worry about that from time to time, but deployment of U.S. troops in the Middle East, in Israel, possibility, in a non-combat role. Apparently the idea here is support troops to take care of medical activity and logistics and, behind the scenes, behind the lines, rear echelon stuff, freeing up IDF personnel to do the actual fighting, which is a good force multiplier and a good way to show support for Israel, but it's also, a good way for American troops to be put in harm's way or to become targets, or for Americans in general to become targets around the world for retaliation for helping the Israelis. But, it's not like we were off the list lately or ever anyway. So I suppose the threat that comes from it is not much greater than what already existed and would continue to exist. But it is an interesting, we have to make note of that. There's the possibility that American troops will be on the ground, even in a non-combat role in Israel during a war. That's an unusual thing. We haven't had that yet. Or haven't had it in some time anyway, if we've ever had it. In Israel, I don't know. But it's been a while, and, last memories of troops on the ground in the Middle East generally for me has been, I guess there was operations in Syria, but my mind goes back to, especially with rear echelon postures, Lebanon, Beirut, and the Marine barracks there, and of course the bombing attack against them. And I assume we don't make that mistake anymore for that reason. That's the big lesson learned. We don't put out big dormitory style installations of Marines any place that isn't going to be heavily fortified. But anyway, just making note of that, and I guess I'm going to have to try and find, note to self to try and find reports about that. Why wasn't that more immediately obvious to me? I was fairly certain I put that aside, and I'm pretty sure it was a New York Times report. So I guess we can open that up and take a look at their front page and see if they make it obvious. But very often I find I have to do some real digging in order. But I'll leave that page open so that I can remind myself that what I'm looking for when I go back to it. All right, let's see. More news closer to home. There's an awful lot in the reporting today, analysis of the various angles of the Jim Jordan story. And Wow. All right. Well, let me share a couple of those. I won't use the New York Times piece. That just seems too generalist. But there was another. Oh, I'm sorry. There's another New York Times piece, but it's Jamel Bowie and in his opinion, he's letting you know, and it's always an interesting and informative opinion. I think the apotheosis of Jim Jordan is a sight to behold. Do I have that right? Apotheosis. Is that the pronunciation that I'm looking for here? Okay. Big SAT words from Jamel Bowie, usually the case. Not always in the headline, but here's the deal, in case you are not 100% sure like me. What am I reading about? Well, I get the gist of it from the body of the article, some of which was previewed on social media today. No problem in the American system at this moment is as acute and disruptive as the one posed by the Republican Party. Yes, of course, there are any number of structural problems facing American politics. Our system of elections, first past the post voting, the Electoral College. And by the way, I have to pose the question to you now at this stage of the game with Jim Jordan on the verge of becoming speaker. What is an electoral vote anyway? Can anyone really say for sure? Aren't basically all of these printed pieces of paper that have arrived here equal in the eyes of the Lord, or at least in the eyes of the Electoral College, or at least in the eyes of the Republicans who control the House and can gum up the works so long as they insist that no, these are the electoral votes from the various states, not those other ones that say the Democrat won. Those can't possibly be right. Anyway, our system of elections, including, first past the post voting, Electoral College, single member districts, partisan gerrymandering, all of this feeds into and amplifies our partisan and ideological polarization. Our system of federalism and dual sovereignty between state and national governments allows for laboratories, not of democracy, but of autocracy, as much as testing grounds for democracy. Witness Florida, I would add. I'm sure that's what he has in mind, but that and other states. Our counter-majoritarian institutions and supermajority rules stymie democratic majorities and turn stability into stasis, putting terrible stress on our entire political system. But it's hard to deal with any of those, or even just live with them, when one of our two major parties is on a downward spiral of dysfunction, with each version of itself more chaotic and deviant, that's the right word for it, than the last. For years, it has been evident that the Republican Party can't govern. When Donald Trump was in office, it was revealing to see the extent to which Republican majorities in Congress struggled to write and pass any legislation of consequence. To wit, after an unsuccessful Herculean lift Herculean, is that how they say it? Why do I having pronunciation issues today? And now I'm worrying about these things, and it makes me think of quixotic, which also I think should be pronounced in the Spanish style, but isn't. Is it Herculean or Herculean? I mean, it's Hercules, right? We're talking about Herculean. But that strikes me as I have some vague memory that that's the wrong pronunciation, and Herculean, or is that one of those dumb fake British pronunciations that I came up with, what's the other one? I can't even remember now, but it'll come to me in a minute or two. But anyway, well, you know what we're talking about, even if I don't know how to say it. So let's see, the efforts here to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which I guess could have been quixotic, referred to that way, and the unsuccessful effort to cut taxes, the lowest hanging fruit on the conservative menu. Congressional Republicans essentially stopped legislating until the day they were dislodged from control of the House in the 2018 midterms. What's become clear of late, in the midst of the chaos that has left the House without a speaker at a particularly fraught moment in foreign and domestic affairs, is that Republicans are as unable to organize themselves as they are incapable of leading the affairs of state. The worst of the problem of the Republican Party, however, is evident in the rise of Jim Jordan and the ascendance of the insurrection wing of the party, with only modest opposition from supposedly more reasonable Republican lawmakers. Representative Dan Crenshaw of Texas, is he supposed to be reasonable? for example, has a reputation for being reasonable. What are you talking about, Jamel? That's not true. I mean, I guess, well, at best, he's saying he has that reputation among idiots, but I mean, he has that reputation. I think we have to admit that much. He is, of course, staunchly conservative, but his feet are mostly planted in reality. I don't know about that. Crenshaw has been publicly critical of the most disruptive and intransigent members of the House Republican Conference, especially those in the House Freedom Caucus, and even wrote an essay in the Wall Street Journal condemning the efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. I guess that's reasonable. A small gesture, all things considered, but still more than most of his colleagues could manage. Crenshaw seems like the kind of Republican who would oppose Jordan's bid to be Speaker of the House. Not to me. Jordan, first elected to the House in 2006, is a far-right ideologue and conspiracy theorist whose most notable accomplishment in office was helping to organize his fellow ideologues and conspiracy theorists into the House Freedom Caucus in 2015. Jordan, who represents the 4th District of Ohio, was one of Trump's leading supporters in the months leading up to and following the 2020 presidential election, accusing Democrats repeatedly of trying to steal the election. Jim Jordan was deeply involved in Donald Trump's anti-democratic efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Thomas Jocelyn, one of the authors of the final report from the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack, told CNN last week. Jordan also helped organize congressional opposition to counting Biden's certified electoral votes. None of Jordan's efforts were rooted in legitimate objections. He simply sought to keep Donald Trump in power, contrary to the will of the American people. Crenshaw's stated contempt for exactly the kind of rhetoric and behavior exemplified by Jordan has not, however, stopped the Texas Republican from backing his colleague from Ohio for Speaker of the House. In an interview on Sunday with CNN's Jake Tapper, Crenshaw claimed that Jordan had become part of the solution, not part of the problem, with regard to the chaos among House Republicans, and dismissed Jordan's contempt for the law and contempt for the law and attempt to overturn the presidential election as non-issues. If I held that grudge, I wouldn't have friends in the conference, Crenshaw said. I was on an island there. Well, what do you need friends in the conference for? Anyway, Crenshaw isn't the only supposedly reasonable Republican member of Congress willing to look past the fact that the leading candidate for Speaker of the House was an active participant in a scheme to subvert the Constitution and install a defeated president in office for a second term, and is a bit of a perv as well. Anyway, even some of the Republicans who have vowed publicly and privately to fight him at every turn are beginning to get weak knees about supporting him, fearing that collective will is dwindling as their numbers decrease, Politico reports. Jordan's allies have also expressed their view that the opposition to his bid for Speaker will melt away as the actual vote on the floor comes near. Once again, Republicans are confronted with a deeply transgressive figure. This is the quote I saw today. Transgressive, I like that, figure with open contempt for the institutions of American democracy, flawed as they may be. Once again, Republicans swear they'll resist his ascent. And once again, Republicans cave, more fearful of losing a primary or coming in for criticism from conservative media than they are of virtually anything else. And each time they cave, these more moderate or mainstream Republicans make the situation a little worse for themselves and for the country. Kevin McCarthy bowed to expediency and pressure when he voted to overturn the 2020 presidential election in the House of Representatives. He did the same when he empowered the most gleeful insurrectionists in his attempt to gain the Speaker's gavel. Now he's out, and Jim Jordan is on the rise. If he wins, Jordan may not last in the position. The kind of Speaker who must twist arms and make threats using conservative media to win the job is, in the modern House, not the kind of Speaker who survives long beyond the next election cycle, even if his party holds its majority. I don't know about that. Who will replace Jim Jordan if and when he falls? It could well be someone worse. I don't know about that. And it will probably be someone worse because there is nothing happening inside the Republican Party right now that can keep it from falling even further into the abyss. I would have maybe made that point by saying, I guess it probably, I mean, it's hard to imagine somebody being worse, but I guess if you are thinking about, well, who would replace him, there just aren't any people who are better, to be honest, who would put themselves up for the post, except for the guy who didn't really want to be up for the post, but found himself up for the post as a default non-Jordan contender. But anyway, I was going to say it probably will be someone worse because there's nobody else in the Republican Party right now except for others who are worse. So, okay, it seems, well, it was worth it just for those 2 paragraphs, I think, there, the call out of Jordan as a deeply transgressive figure with an open contempt for the institutions of American democracy. And they're going to vote for him anyway. And they keep making this same mistake over and over again with worse and worse people. So that's the point of bringing you Jamel's column here. Let's see. Things I wanted to bring to your attention. Well, let's see. Why don't we go over in this direction? We have a few minutes here. A related article, but not exactly directly on point. Certainly not, well, I don't know. Now I'm forgetting where the article went to, but I did skim it yesterday. Philip Bump's piece in the Washington Post, making mention of another of the frequent suspects, or the usual suspects in all this, murdery Trader Green, and the lingering belief that truth is partisan. What's he talking about here? Let him lay it out for you. Paul Hodgkins was one of the first people to plead guilty to charges stemming from the riot at the Capitol on January 6th. Hodgkins made it to the floor of the Senate during the riot, in case you were wondering what you mean, not as a senator, where he was photographed next to the QAnon shaman, remember that guy, and others. He was arrested in February of 2021 and entered a plea that May. 2 months later, a judge sentenced him to 8 months in prison. Speaking to a documentarian after that hearing, Hodgkins accepted responsibility for his actions and the outcome, but while he was in prison, he tried to rescind his plea agreement. It didn't work. Usually doesn't. He was released in April of 2022. Soon afterward, he was again visited by that documentarian, and I'm surprised that he agreed to talk to her the first time, much less the second time, because the documentarian is Nancy Pelosi's daughter, Alexandra Pelosi. Their post-incarceration conversation was included in Alexandra's film, The Insurrectionist Next Door, that was released by HBO Documentary Films on Sunday. In part of what's included, Pelosi speaks with Hodgkins as he's working in his yard. Cable news-style chatter can be heard in the background. Wait, so you're still listening to Fox News? Pelosi asks. That's actually OAN, Hodgkins replies, referring to the fringe right channel One America News. He explains that he doesn't have cable, so he doesn't watch Fox News. So you're still watching conservative television? Pelosi asks with incredulity. You served 8 months in jail for everything you believe for everything you believe in based on what you saw on those shows, and you're still watching them. Well, I was supposed to turn into a liberal with that or something? Hodgkins replies. No, my opinions on what's good and what's not good for our country have not changed. That snippet of Pelosi's film was recorded off a television set and shared on social media by a supporter of Donald Trump. Hodgkins' rejection of Pelosi's suggestion that he should rethink his media diet earned him 3 fire emojis of support. That post was then picked up by Representative Murdery Trader Green, who concurred with the supportive response and then took things further. I guess tweeting or whatever it was on Twitter. They wanted Jan 6, as they put it in their shorthand lingo. They wanted January 6th to be the reason Americans turned their backs on Trump, and they are trying to use it to destroy him. Yeah, they should. Green wrote on Twitter, Never mind the X thing. But it didn't work. It won't work, and it will never work. She's not really using 3 different tenses there, but she's not very smart. Because it's only exposing Democrats for who they really are, which will destroy them in the end. Probably not. And I'm not sure what point she's really making here, but it doesn't matter. She's murdery Trader Green. But it is a fascinating exchange for a simple reason. Pelosi's question was inartful, certainly, centered on the partisanship of the outlets Hodgkins trusted, instead of on the validity of that trust. This is a good point, but I could see how you might ask the question on the spot inartfully, as he says. Hodgkins' response framed the tension in that same way, as though Pelosi was asking about his loyalty to a political worldview rather than to reality. The question wasn't really about whether he wants conservative news rather than liberal news, as Hodgkins put it, or even conservative news rather than objective news. The question was really about Hodgkins' reliance on information sources that had misled him. But neither Hodgkins nor Green views claims that the 2020 election was stolen as misleading. Instead, they view the central tension raised by Pelosi as being between 2 political worldviews, despite the objective fact that the worldview they accept is false. It's not entirely clear what inspired Hodgkins to travel to Washington for the events of January 6th. Maybe it was Trump's calls for people to do so, or perhaps it was chatter he'd seen elsewhere. Other defendants in January 6th riot cases pointed to Trump or conservative media as having inspired their trips. It's hard to imagine, though, that he arrived there that day and went into the Capitol while believing that Joe Biden was the legitimate winner of the 2020 election. At some point, he'd almost certainly come to accept the false claims about fraud. There's no indication that Hodgkins has ever been dissuaded from this position. He's not constantly in the public eye, nor should he be, so there isn't a huge body of information to assess when considering whether he's had a change of heart. But his exchange with Pelosi suggests that by that point he hadn't. He wasn't going to turn away from One America or other outlets that present false information about the election or other things, in part because he doesn't recognize the information as false, and in part because he views the alternatives not as objective, but as sitting on the other side of the partisan spectrum. Green's ascent in Republican politics was not dissimilar. Soon after winning her party's primary in 2020, she drew national attention for her embrace of QAnon conspiracy theories. She was a prominent supporter of Trump and has oriented her politics around him. So she lifts up Hodgkins' response ostensibly as a way to talk about how they, presumably the elites, the media, the Democrats, all of them, are trying to deceive Americans so that they are hostile to Trump. But it doesn't work, as Green trumpets, because people like Hodgkins continue to view objective reporting as politically biased reporting. I would add the word reporting there. Green's office did not immediately respond to a request for comment, never will. It has been the case for some time that people's choice of media outlet mirrors politics and political beliefs. Polling conducted by PRRI in late 2021 found that 16% of Americans completely agreed that the previous year's election had been stolen from Trump. Among those who said they most trusted Fox News, nearly half said it had been stolen. Not Fox News, but the election. Although it would be great if someone would steal Fox News. Among those who most trusted fringe right outlets like OAN, more than 7 in 10 thought that about the election. Again, this belief is objectively, demonstrably false. The election was not stolen from Trump, and there was no justifiable reason for anyone to believe that the counting of electoral votes at the Capitol on January 6th needed to be interrupted. This is not a partisan position, though there is a partisan split in acceptance of it as true. What the response to Pelosi's footage reveals is how this works, how Hodgkins fails to recognize his central error, the one that occurred before he got to Washington. Green then uses his example to reinforce the idea that the feud is between partisan worldviews instead of a rejection of reality. This is an important point, although it does I'm going to interrupt to say it reminds me of another similar point, though it wasn't necessarily a fight between objective reality and other views of that reality. Not, the opposite ones, but rather the insistence that if you weren't towing the conservative line, then what you were doing was towing the liberal line. Because, like I don't know, in what context did it come up the other day that the opposite of sitting is standing? Well, there are other positions you could be in, and I'm not certain which one is the opposite, right? But I'm thinking back to, like, for instance, 2005 or so, when in December 2004, we finally did find out. Thanks for waiting until after the election so as not to influence the election. New York Times for telling everybody that George W. Bush and his administration had been so deeply involved in warrantless surveillance activities, not to mention indefinite detention activities in Guantanamo. But, and then you say, well, this is a facial violation and a facial, a square facial threat to the Constitution and its protections of rights for Americans and others. And everybody ought to be upset about this, and we ought to be thinking about initiating impeachment proceedings against George W. Bush. And even the media, which is here in the form of Philip Bump, correctly objecting to this idea that objective reporting is in fact liberal reporting. It's just objective. Well, this was objectively a challenge to the constitutional order, and impeaching him is the solution we objectively have been handed by the Constitution. And to advocate for the impeachment of George W. Bush, though, was treated by this very self-same media as obviously by default a liberal position. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I'm getting distracted by a lot of very interesting things, but did I make my point completely enough before the break here? I don't know what Philip Bump was saying at this time. Maybe nothing. For all I know, he was still in middle school. I don't know. How old is Philip Bump? I should take a look at his picture and make a snap judgment about that. I think that's the only. I think that's the smart thing to do. Snap judgments. But I'm thinking back to 2005 and how many journalists were sure or would dismiss the idea of pushing for Bush's impeachment or even an investigation leading to his possible impeachment as a partisan political activity. I mean, it was undertaken largely by Democrats, but mostly for the reason that Republicans, then as now, were also, everybody has their partisanship, but they too were completely sold on their own partisanship. And a defense of Bush was as much part of their team activity as I suppose there was probably some ideological reason to it beyond the partisan as well. They actually were, firm believers in the necessity of bending the rules in order to conduct the global war on terror. They really did believe that. And I guess I'm willing to entertain that possibility in some contexts too, but I objected even then when they said, well, we have no time for this sort of liberal partisanship and we've got a global war on terror to conduct here. Even the media was saying it. And this is clearly motivated by partisan politics. And I objected right, then and there. Look, I'm a liberal, was then, am now, but I thought this is actually, why isn't this a conservative point of view, right? We are told very clearly what the outside parameters of permissible surveillance are, and this flies directly in the face of all of it. This is a constitutionalist, originalist view. I guess you could. I didn't come at it from that direction, but why isn't it considered conservative to say, no, the Constitution's prohibition against warrantless surveillance must be preserved even in times of war, unless you're simply going to suspend everything. And then if you do that, well, all right. Well, there's other problems that ensue from that. But it was a real source of frustration at the time, and I assume it's the same source of frustration we see here too. It's not put to Hodgkins correctly, but I guess had it been, he would have denied its import even then. But why are you listening to people who misled you? The objective truth lies elsewhere. And I know you hate CNN because you think they're too liberal, but get your news from anywhere else that you want that is objective. Trump lost the election. You can't just say that the truth is actually partisanship. There has to be room for the possibility that something that stands in opposition to your partisan worldview isn't itself necessarily partisan. The opposite of Republican isn't necessarily Democrat all the time. It could be, in this case, as it is, objective truth is also the opposite of Republican belief. So a good point, but it's been, it's not the first time this has happened. We'll say it that way. All right, so where were we with Bump's article? Let's see. Right, he makes the very good point that what the response to Pelosi's footage reveals is how this works, how Hodgkins fails to recognize his central error, the one that occurred before he got to Washington. Green then uses his example to reinforce the idea that the feud is between partisan worldviews instead of a rejection of reality. After he was released last year, Hodgkins appeared in court as part of his release agreement. I hope I will never have to go through anything of the kind ever again, he said to the judge. I was proud to say I never had anything out of the way of the law. I want to continue that going forward. Okay. Not the most, well-designed statement, but okay. Hodgkins is free to choose any media outlet he desires, of course, but it would be worth noting his recognizing, the link between that choice and his having had to go through what he went through. That immersing himself in surreal presentations of what's good for our country, quote unquote, might prove a long tail risk for avoiding illegality in the future. A little too fancy way of saying it at the end there, but the point is a valid one nonetheless. And the more I look at Philip Bump, it's a tiny little picture here. I don't know if I can exactly pinpoint his age. So, continuing interest in the looming refrigerator magnet crisis in America. And now I'm thinking maybe I want to go and, despite myself, click on this nonsense from recommended reads. And it's a real pain in the butt because it won't just tell me. I got to click on some more things. Remember, these things are designed to generate the maximum number of clicks in everything. So what's going on here? Here are their recommended reads. The clickbait is, let's see. The U.S. government owns a giant underground vault filled with this popular food. Boing. Go find out what it is. It's been operational since Reagan was in office. Who cares? It wasn't. Now it turns out that the read I'm looking for is in the Wall Street Journal, which means I probably won't even be able to read the damn thing. Is this the end for fridge magnets? Yes, according to appliance makers, new models no longer feature magnetized doors. And all you have to do, of course, is give them the COVID vaccine. And they'll all become magnetic. Or maybe you don't even need magnetic surfaces in your refrigerator because you'll become magnetic. Allegedly, which, untrue. Okay, I have to say that now or else YouTube bans us. I wonder how much of it, of the preview, we're going to be redirected to the Wall Street Journal. So the answer is not much. Are fridge magnets lowbrow? This is their version of the headline. Oh, can I reload that? Are fridge magnets lowbrow? Appliance manufacturers have decided yes. I didn't realize that was the idea. They're too lowbrow, and that's why I thought they were just maybe manufacturing them out of different, cheaper materials. How fridge magnet lovers are coping with an industry move away from magnetic materials, plus 3 tips for anyone who refuses to give up the habit of slapping mementos on their coolers. Wow, okay. I wouldn't have guessed that we would have ended up here. But you can make a political point out of any of this stuff, right? Can't you? In fact, watch how it's done. Masterful work here by Mark Hogue, our friend Asparagus Zucchini, who presents it this way. He presents us with a photo of Julia Child's refrigerator from the Smithsonian Museum of American History. And it is covered in refrigerator magnets. And he asks pointedly, why are Republicans trying to take away our refrigerator magnets? I don't know that they are. They probably aren't. But it makes a fantastic question, as Republicans have campaigned in the past. Why are Democrats trying to take away our light bulbs? What else have they done? I can't even remember. Light bulbs, I don't know. Right, hamburgers. You're going to ban hamburger. Take away our cars and trucks and replace them with electric mopeds or what have you. Right, all sorts of accusations left and right. Plus your windmills are giving the whales cancer or something like that. And why not? I mean, actually, you should throw that out there. Take the Wall Street Journal article, say that the refrigerator manufacturers are getting rid of these magnetic surfaces, and it must be the Republicans who are causing it. Why not? Okay. I didn't think we were going to go in that direction, but I'm glad that we did. It makes for a good question. All right, let's see. Other things to share with you. I think we got through the Murdery Trader Green thing, although it wasn't chiefly about her, so that's good. And here's a different story from out of left field, one worth sharing, perhaps. We'll make a big deal of it. What was I going to say? The Virginia elections coming up soon. Particularly the state legislative elections. It's not a gubernatorial election this year, but control of the state legislature in the offing. Everybody knows that about Virginia, and everybody knows, we're all waking up to the fake moderate status or we already knew perhaps, of Glenn Youngkin. Anyway, I just thought I would throw this out there because it's another interesting incident of Youngkin playing the moderate, but actually acting the ultra-conservative and getting the same results as the other ultra-conservatives. Complete failure. Something we've missed to this point, but we should all become aware of. Virginia National Guard. I missed this deployment entirely. Maybe I saw it and just made no note of it. But Virginia National Guard, I don't know. I kind of want to not give it all away in the headline. Why don't we say this? I'll tell you what happened. The Virginia National Guard, like so many others, got deployed to the U.S.-Mexican border in Texas, at the request of the Texas governor. All Republican governors were expected to send, at great expense, their National Guard to the border to fight the invasion, to stop human trafficking, and of course, most importantly, if you weren't convinced of the importance of all that, why is the Virginia National Guard in Texas? All right, well, border crossing. Yeah. I mean, I understand that we're supposed to think that's a huge crisis, et cetera, et cetera. But why are our National Guard's troops there? Well, human trafficking. Oh, that's bad too. Still, I need a third thing in order for us to finally think that in combination, all these three things are worth it. Fentanyl. Yes, all the millions and millions and billions and possibly trillions of tons of fentanyl, which kills you just by saying the word fentanyl, crossing the border. Millions of cops are dead. Don't you understand? What kind of American are you? Millions of cops are dropping dead in the streets because people are talking about fentanyl. You remember how dangerous this is. And again, we ask all the time, someone's making fentanyl. Why aren't they all dead? Why doesn't it seems like self-limiting? Like, I think we learned this from pandemic studies, right? If your contagion is instantly deadly the minute you're exposed to it, as they keep telling you is true. Cops are dying even from being in the same room as somebody who talked about fentanyl. Why aren't the people making fentanyl all dead already? That would limit its spread dramatically. But one gets the sense that they are perhaps exaggerating the risk, and the frequency with which fentanyl is encountered. However, Glenn Youngkin, nonetheless, dispatches Virginia National Guard to the border to stop border crossing, bad. Human trafficking, bad. And fentanyl, bad. And guess what? So the mission is done. They sent them for 30 days, I guess, at the cost of $2 million to the state, I guess, which is an annoyance to say the least. And I want you to guess how much fentanyl they stopped. I think I've given it away. None. Was there border crossing observed? Oh, absolutely. Human trafficking? Well, they claim as much. Although, interestingly, they, were pretty forthright in saying there's not anything we can do about it. We were here to burn $2 million, not helping. This is really interesting. Virginia National Guard finds no fentanyl, refers 86 migrants a day. Wow, I mean, that's a lot. During $2 million trip to Texas border. All right, let me lay it out here I'll give it to you the way they do in NBC News here. Ted Oberg, the NBC News for investigative reporter, but also Katie Leslie and Jeff Piper get byline credit on this piece. Here's the deal. Governor Glenn Youngkin decried the toll of human trafficking and fentanyl on Virginians when he announced plans to deploy troops this summer to the Texas border, where the influx of migrants has soared. But a News 4 I-Team review of the mission raises questions about the Virginia National Guard's ability to combat those problems. Their ability to combat the problems. Yeah, that's a good question too. But, also maybe the cost and the just total waste of time. That would be my focus. The I-Team reviewed daily summaries of the Guard's nearly $2 million mission and found that over roughly 3 weeks, they referred about 1,800 people to border authorities for illegal crossings and 145 people to police. But the reports also show the Guard didn't encounter fentanyl at any point and experienced what one commander described as a, quote, weakening of the deterrent effect of our soldiers and airmen on migrants and alleged human traffickers. Allow them to explain. Why don't you? Just please allow it. Shortly after Youngkin announced his decision to send troops to Texas, critics pounced on the move as politically motivated, which it was, arguing the governor was using the Guard to prove his conservative bona fides ahead of a possible presidential bid, which is almost certainly exactly what was going on and is, I think, therefore, arguably a misappropriation of official resources. But whatever. It's the kind that people can't separate the politics from the policy for some reason or refuse to acknowledge that they are adept at doing so and therefore won't charge him with any wrongdoing or certainly not convict him of anything. But Youngkin, who was among more than a dozen Republican governors responding to Texas Governor Greg Abbott's request for help, insisted Virginia has a stake in what happens on the border. Well, I don't know. I don't think so. We're affected by it to some extent at a great distance, but okay, fine. Due to the, quote, unmitigated danger posed by the increasing drug supply exacerbating the fentanyl crisis, I don't think he knows exactly what he's talking about here, and the impact of criminal activity on the Commonwealth, Virginia will do its part to assist the state of Texas's efforts, Youngkin wrote in his May executive directive. How exciting. How poorly worded. All of that. How do you like that, by the way? That's what does that mean exactly? The danger, unmitigated danger. Now, we have police. They have police. We have federal officials. We have state officials, local officials, county officials, state officials. Everybody's looking to stop the drug trade. It's pretty mitigated. Plus, of course, we keep hearing all these stories, millions of pounds of fentanyl stopped at the border, seized at the border, to which Republicans then respond, look, Biden's got an open border. Look at all this fentanyl that just got seized, which means the border's not open and the fentanyl isn't getting through. But they do it anyway, and it's a big joke. But that's mitigation, right? So to say it's unmitigated is just wrong. But okay, We're using it in a more metaphorical sense. Unmitigated danger posed by what? Drugs entering is the fentanyl getting to Virginia? If the fentanyl's getting to Virginia, then Youngkin is stuck with the problem of open borders for Virginia. Why aren't we stopping the fentanyl? Why is it unmitigated? Why? The reality, of course, is that there's probably not a great deal, if any, fentanyl in circulation anywhere for any reason. But okay, it's not a big problem really in Virginia. And he'll say that it isn't because he's doing such a great job stopping it, in which case, of course, it's mitigated, but never mind. Unmitigated danger posed by the increasing drug supply not exacerbated by, but exacerbating the fentanyl crisis. What? One, there's no fentanyl crisis probably anywhere, much less Virginia. What does this mean? Increasing drug supply, exacerbating it's nonsense. It's word salad. But then he goes on to say, Virginia will do its part, which, as it turns out, is nothing because there was no fentanyl even witnessed, much less seized or stopped by these troops. Now, what did they do? There was more, but interesting that, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's more to this directive and maybe more that cites some of the things they did have at least some minimal impact on stopping migrants. But anyway, through an open records request, I'll just get back to the story. The I-team obtained invoices and daily situation reports detailing the Guard's July deployment to Eagle Pass, Texas. None of the reports, which outline what the Guard observed each day, indicates troops encountered or seized any fentanyl. In an interview with Roanoke NBC affiliate WSLS 10 News during the deployment, the task force's commander, Major Sidney Leslie, acknowledged the members haven't seen fentanyl in this particular area, while referring the reporter to the Texas Department of Public Safety for more. An NPR analysis of federal data in August found nearly 90% of illicit fentanyl is seized at official border crossings, not spots along the Rio Grande River where the Virginia Guard was deployed. According to immigration authorities cited in the NPR report, the majority is smuggled by people legally authorized to enter the country, with more than half by U.S. citizens. So, put that in your pipe and smoke it, if that's what you even do with fentanyl. I have no idea what you do with fentanyl, but it doesn't matter because I'm asking you to put the facts in your pipe. Okay, it's metaphorical. Though the Virginia Guard members didn't find fentanyl, Leslie told WSLS his troops encountered human trafficking every single day. Of course, what they're conflating it with is human trafficking as sex trafficking, as opposed to, someone paid me to guide them. No one paid me to, but someone pays someone else to guide them over the border. And then, to show them a way to successfully cross the border and then go back and get more people. That's human trafficking. He's moving humans. That's his cargo. He's not necessarily selling them into slavery or indentured servitude or however you want to put it, much less sex trafficking. He might be. That is, though, human trafficking. And they're hoping that you'll think, we every single day encountered sex trafficking. I don't know about that. But now, how do you like this, right? So let's say we take them at their word and we even accept the implication that they have encountered sex trafficking in this human trafficking every single day. Oh, well, at least you saved a bunch of people from that horror, right? Well, as it says here, the Guard was powerless to arrest bad actors, however, and instead worked to track potential illegal crossings. We don't know whether they really were illegal or not, but potentially illegal, and refer people that they suspected of criminal activity to the Texas Department of Public Safety. So that's what the $2 million 30-day deployment was about. Looking for fentanyl, found none. Looking to stop dirty, filthy, disgusting sex trafficking. Well, we might or may not have encountered that. But we did encounter human trafficking. Oh, yeah, what'd you do about it? Nothing. We weren't allowed to. Yeah. Oh, what do you mean? Well, there's more in here about that. But you might reach the conclusion, well, if you weren't allowed to intervene, why did you go? And can we have our money back? Nope, apparently not. Records show the Guard recorded 6,717 people that they described as, quote, illegal immigrants. I don't know that they're qualified to make that determination, but let's just say, for the sake of argument for the moment, that all 6,717 people that they suspected of being illegal immigrants were, in fact, what people who believe in illegal immigration at all in the first place would describe as illegal immigration. Well, anyone a Guard member believed intended to cross into the United States would be categorized that way. Now, of those, the Guard referred less than a third, 1,834, to federal border authorities, which leads you to this question. All right, Virginia National Guard, how many people did you think you encountered who were, in fact, illegal border crossers? The answer, 6,700. That's a lot. Okay, so what'd you do about it? Well, in most cases, nothing. Or did you even, tell the border authorities, hey, I see some people who are illegally crossing? We did, and for a lot of people, 1,834. But 5,000 other people, you thought they were illegal immigrants, but you didn't tell the border guards about them? I don't really understand it. Did you really think they were illegal immigrants, or did you just basically think, well, they're brownish, they're probably Mexican? I don't know, though. For whatever reason, we decided not to refer 5,000 of them to the Border Patrol. And yet thought, what a great idea. What a good use of 30 days and $2 million. Now, they also reported 145 people that they described as criminals. That is to say, not criminal because they were crossing the border illegally, but just generally criminal. I think you're doing something illegal. You're an American, probably, just out here doing illegal stuff. What? We don't know. But 145 of them they found and reported. I don't know how many they found, but they reported 145 people they described as criminals to Texas authorities, though it's unclear whether any were charged with a crime. So they could have been wrong about all of them. They could have been right about all of them, but none of them were crossing any borders. Anyway, on July 18th, their 8th day working at the border, the commander's assessment reported, quote, a weakening of the deterrent effect of our soldiers and airmen. Why? He wrote that though soldiers are giving clear commands, human traffickers, and they deserve a dramatic music, maybe a horror dramatic music, but they're human traffickers. They're moving people across the border. Are they sex traffickers? We don't know. It doesn't say. They just wanted to use the word traffickers to make it sound like it deserved the dramatic music. So, but what was the problem? Well, these dastardly human traffickers and the ones not being moved by human traffickers, they're just regular immigrants. Well, they made it pretty clear up front, because they have to follow the rules that are handed to them by Texas. That's who invited them, after all. You can't do anything. You can't do anything with them. So, yeah, I could see where that might be weakening the deterrent effect of having our soldiers and airmen on the ground there. Human traffickers and immigrants, quote, know that they will not use physical force against them. So once it becomes clear, well, I'm trying to cross the border here, and oh my God, there are some military personnel there. I think we're done for. Where the jig is up, everybody. We can't get through into the United States. Oh, wait a second. Actually, you can walk right by them. This is weird. They are not doing anything. How odd. Well, that'll weaken your deterrent effect. So the report also reveals conflicts over Virginia's policy to withhold water for migrants. How do you like that? They sent our troops to the border and then intentionally instructed them, well, you're not even allowed to give people water. They have to just suffer and possibly die. And then you maybe refer them to the Border Patrol. So that was a clear area of conflict as well. That made, apparently, maybe even caused some problems among the ranks as well, as they began to think, maybe the thing we're doing here is inhumane as well as ineffective. So how do you like that? That's a big report. Now, for the big conclusion here is that they point out, oh, yeah, well, you were under the command of Texas officialdom there. You couldn't do things differently than Texas outlined or the Border Patrol outlined. So, but basically, the whole point of the article, $2 million and 30 days later, nothing got done, nobody did anything, and nobody saw any of the stuff they said they were going to see. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. You might not recognize how you're being welcomed back by the music because itchy trigger finger on the mouse here as I answered the phone as Joan McCarter joined us for her segment. I accidentally ended the music, and so the familiar cues that would ordinarily bring us back into the show were gone. Thanks for standing by, Joan. Okay. Well, that was kind of weird. And at any rate, we've reached the limit of our time for discussing the ineffective deployment of the Virginia National Guard to the Texas border. Exciting development in Republican annals. And well, Joan, I don't know. Did you hear the end of the previous segment? If not,
I had.
That's
I
fine
was listening, but I wasn't really listening because I was
good because it was
working.
boring. Anyway, that's fine. But now we can give you the pop quiz because I haven't spoiled it. Can you guess how many metric tons of fentanyl the Virginia National Guard intercepted at during its 30-day deployment to Eagle Pass, Texas, at the Texas-Mexico border? Again, the units we're looking for, metric tons for some reason. This is an international crime. Metric tons of fentanyl. Can you put a number on that? Can you make a guess?
0.5.
Okay, that's close in the sense that that's almost zero, which is the actual answer. None whatsoever. And apparently, in their deployment along the border, they were looking, of course, for human traffickers, which is what technically you would call people who are helping others get across the border. Not sex traffickers, which are dangerous and terrible, but they love to use the word traffickers for both so that people will think there's something wrong with, this is a great idea. We have to stop the trafficking because sex, and that's awful and exploitative when you're talking about non-consensual sex, and that's usually what's happening with traffickers, but not necessarily this kind of traffickers. But anyway, they also said they encountered some 6,000 illegal crossers, but for whatever reason decided only to refer about 1,000 or so to the Border Patrol, which was their job. So as it turns out, very interesting statistics. They saw some 6,000 people crossing, but only decided to tell on 1,000 of them. And because reasons, I don't know, very hard. It might have been hot outside. I think what they actually thought was, they said, look, brown people, illegal immigrants. And then they got closer to them and they either found out, no, they're not, or they're not brown, or they are, but they're Americans and they're out on a hike. But write that down because we have to have numbers. And then they were like, gee whiz, we have no reason to tell the Border Patrol about any of them. Interestingly, they did find 145 other random criminals or people that they decided were criminals that they referred on criminal charges to Texas authorities, which I think is to indicate they're Americans doing something dumb or illegal near the border, and we saw it, and that's bad, but we don't know what to do. And then it turns out we can't do anything anyway, because as it turns out, it's not up to them, and they have to operate. Authority. Yeah, Texas holds the sway there when it comes to that, and then of course the Border Patrol if there are actually people crossing the border. And as it turns out, so the Virginia National Guard, like every other National Guard, has to go there and they stand around I guess given what they can actually do, they're standing around in costume. That's uniforms when they're working and there are things that they can do. There's a real reason to have that stuff and wear the camo. I don't know why in the desert you wear the green camo, but okay. And you stand around with equipment that's of real use in a real deployment. But in this one, it's cosplay. And they report things to people who may or may not actually do anything about it. And then they found zero fentanyl. But Glenn Youngkin would like you to know that the deployment actually definitely was a huge, huge success. Just wanted you to know. And it was without a doubt worthwhile, as he said. And then why? Because we need to secure our border. Not that they did any of that. And they did so while they were there by helping thousands and thousands and thousands, that's 3,000s, of other guardsmen who were working on the border in Texas. So the job of the Virginia National Guard was to help the thousands and thousands and thousands of other guardsmen do something.
So why do we need a wall? Can't they all just do hands across America, hands across the world, and
they should be able to do that because, of course, how many of them were there, right? How many would you need to form hands across America? Well, thousands, but probably thousands and thousands. But if you needed more, you could add thousands and thousands and thousands. And then, at that point, it's just stands shoulder to shoulder and no one gets across.
Also, did the state of Virginia incur any costs for this?
They certainly did. $2 million worth, as it turns out, which actually I thought was kind of a low. I thought that, I would have estimated it as being higher, like sending, although I don't know if they said anywhere, how many troops did we send? We sent some troops. We don't know how many. I note now, as I'm looking through this piece, I don't know whether it says anywhere how many we sent. Then there's this breakdown of, it was $2 million, $787,000 of payroll, $552,000 of lodging and food, $312,000 in travel. And it occurs to me, how many people was that? If it was 15, bad deal. And also, right, food, lodging and food. I'm thinking, as most people are, they're deploying the National Guard. Those guys are military. And they're going to the border, which is a wild, untamed area. So lodging, what happened to the tents? Where are the tents that we imagine people stay in when they get deployed out there?
Is this just all an effort to boost Abbott's economy?
Maybe, although I don't know. If they're going there and they're staying in Best Western hotels, then I guess yes, and they might be.
They got to get the food from someplace.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
It's not going to be MREs.
Well, wouldn't it? I don't know.
Maybe.
You would think so, but then there. So okay, the Waffle House is doing great. Best Western, fantastic. The payroll, presumably some of it is spent there buying. I went to Texas and all I got was no fentanyl and this hat. But I love the emphasis on fentanyl, which I still can't really understand when they keep telling you, well, you're not a real American because you're not sad that 10 billion cops have died near people talking about fentanyl, right? How deadly it is. And all you have to do is be in the same room as somebody who touched it and you're going to die. And
by the way,
the
people bringing the fentanyl across the border are Americans.
Well, yeah, they are. And they're alive, which is amazing because I thought fentanyl would kill you just by being in the same county. But yeah, and I keep wondering aloud on the show, can't stop now, why we're not like constantly facing the, zombie apocalypse landscape of dead fentanyl workers all over the streets of America. Somebody's making it.
Very good question.
How come they're not dead? What do they have that the cops don't have? They're wearing everything there is, the cops. They're head to toe. They're going out now looking like, black painted snowmen, lumbering down the streets, just doing regular police work. But there's no fentanyl suits that can keep them alive. How are they making fentanyl? So I don't know. But that's just the latest. I think we all suspect fentanyl is just the new word for caravans. Those aren't coming either. Killer bees, caravans, and fentanyl, all in the same category as I see it. When are they going to get here? They're very slow-moving bees.
They are very slow-moving bees.
Okay. Well, they're tiny, and it takes them a long time to get. Okay. Surely you had some other concerns, though. Let me let you address some of the things you've been working on instead. How about
Lucky me.
Yeah.
Jim Jordan.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, naturally, that's got to be top of mind.
It's the overwhelming concern for people who watch the House of Representatives.
Yes.
I get to do.
Yeah. I see your headline from yesterday, House Republicans folding like cheap tents. That's where the tents went, and that's why the Virginia National Guard didn't have any.
That's why.
So, okay. Yeah, I mean, that's an apt description. A lot of people who said yesterday, no way, to Jim Jordan now say, actually, I'm sort of scared, just like I was on January 6th, that if I voted to impeach Trump, my family would be threatened. Similar feeling.
I think so. I think that's a lot of it. And then, they're lacking principle. They're lacking.
Yes, there's also that.
Any sense of what's good for the country. The one that just really got to me yesterday was Mike Lawler, the New York freshman in a Biden district, who flipped, I believe, 3 times from... Let's see. Never Jordan to, I'll consider Jordan to, I'm voting for McCarthy.
All right. Well, it's staying in the news. I mean.
And I believe that this morning I won't be the last vote against Jordan. Is that what I heard?
Did see somebody say something like that. Maybe it was him. I won't be the one I'm not going to throw the election against him. Is that what he was trying to say? So if it's 216 votes for him.
If my vote puts him over, then I'll be the one who does it. Which, of course, he's going to say that because that gives him access to power still.
Yeah, although...
Or to not being,
not getting
assassinated by MAGA freaks.
Okay. Yeah, you want that to be off the table. Practically speaking, it's difficult for... What's his name? Lawler?
Lawler.
So
I'm not
one
sure
of
how
those.
it's pronounced.
But it starts with an L, and the likelihood of his being the deciding vote in an alphabetical viva voce vote is about 0 unless he skips it.
He can wait for the second round of the roll call.
I guess that's true, or he can absent himself.
He cannot be
and then,
present and then come back into the room.
Yeah, you have to engineer that if you have to want it to happen.
I mean, you can just not answer the first time through.
Yes. And
have them back to you. So
yeah, I mean, but then it's like, well, now you really clearly do want to be threatened.
Yes.
Now you're just playing. All right. Well, so that was a non-answer. Essentially, he's not really thinking about, the logistics of the vote. He's just trying to give an answer that won't get him in trouble, but
I know
means
a
they'll
lot
come
of them
back
are
to him.
thinking, okay, Kevin McCarthy wants it to be Jordan. Kevin McCarthy just raised a buttload of money because that, for whatever reason, is the thing that McCarthy does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how he's such an effective fundraiser because he's not effective at anything else.
Yeah. Well,
But he can really
often
bring in the bucks for the Republicans.
he
So I'm
likes
sure
traveling.
they're looking at all of that money McCarthy raised, knowing that Jordan is McCarthy's choice, and thinking, if I want to get in on that,
Yeah.
I got to go with McCarthy's guy.
I guess. I mean, I'm interested in how McCarthy even landed on this at all. I guess I'm not coming back, so that's not going to happen. So I better choose somebody. And okay, I never liked Scalise, but now he's dropped out. Good, that makes it easy. And he can just say, I just want the issue settled. Whether, I don't really love
He
Jordan
likes
or
Jordan.
not, but
He
maybe
actually
he does.
considers Jordan an ally.
Okay.
So,
all right, well, that's his problem, and that's why he's never really been good at stuff like politics.
yeah.
But he raises money, and money doesn't care who your friends are, I guess.
Oh, well, and, there's the Trump aspect, too.
Yes.
It's interesting that they're pushing Jordan, though. Probably the least... Well, no, we know where he's at. He's not the least effective Republican in the Congress. He's the, I don't know, 8th least?
Oh, in terms of...
17th out of 222
Yeesh.
in terms of effectiveness.
Okay.
He has never had a bill even pass out of committee. I'm not sure he's ever introduced actual legislation beyond a couple of resolutions.
Well, you can't...
He has never been there as a legislator.
That seems true.
And
he's been
I'm
powerless
not sure
as chairman of the
he
judiciary.
knows how it works.
Yeah, he might not. Because usually, he thinks committees are about yelling at people at hearings. And I might be shocked to learn that sometimes the meetings are markups of legislation. I don't think he goes to those.
I don't think so.
So I don't know for sure. And, like we say, to be fair, is it really fair to expect someone as powerless as a backbencher like chairman of the Judiciary Committee to either be able to get anything done or understand how things work or learn how to use a committee for things? He's very busy. Probably yelling about who knows what, fentanyl, stealing of the election, et cetera, et cetera. So really, he's just never had any opportunity, except that they keep making him chair of things and putting him on important committees that are ostensibly doing the work of the moment. He keeps getting himself put on that stuff.
Yes.
And I guess by McCarthy. So I guess that explains part of that, too. It's not new. I guess you're right. He's always thought of him as an ally I guess he could have felt like he was forced to put Jim Jordan.
I don't know. It's
there.
McCarthy.
Yeah,
he hates
hard to
Scalise
tell.
for whatever reason. So, Jordan's his guy.
Okay. Well, there you have it. So now he's going to be backing him, and then he's not been particularly effective at moving his McCarthy, that is, at moving his stalwarts over to Jordan, or they're just drawing it out in the hopes of getting some sort of favor. But a lot of them are saying,
a lot of the cardinals, as they call them, the appropriations chairs, moved to Jordan yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, I did see that. Also, the Armed Services Committee chair.
So a lot of the sort of old line establishment types, including Mike Rogers, who was talking the day before about we gotta see what the Democrats want. It's ridiculous. Ann Wagner, who said never McCarthy, never Jordan. He spit on Scalise. He was horrible to him and betrayed him, and it was awful. And we just gasped at how horrible he was in that last meeting.
And yet
said, "Oh yeah, okay, I'll vote for Jordan."
Yeah, but that's all in the past.
Yeah.
Like at lunchtime earlier today. That's what they're about. They they cave in to stuff like that. They cry and on occasion to the news reporters about the pressure that they're feeling, meaning, they're threatening my family or more openly, well, they're going to threaten me with a primary. And that worries me because if I lose a primary, then I won't be able to be here and be intimidated by the leadership and be threatened all the time. And I don't want that because apparently I love that. And I can't wait to come back here and do whatever they tell me to do, even if my constituents don't agree with it because I represent the Biden district and I want to live in constant fear. And what happens if I don't have to do that next year? What will I do with myself? But that apparently works with them.
Apparently.
And, all right.
It's very strange.
So we'll vote.
Very
they'll vote
discouraging.
today? Yeah.
And the vote starts at noon.
Okay.
Presumably.
Yeah, I
Or
wonder if it won't be delayed
or
a little
2,
bit.
Or
possibly
4.
6, 10. We don't really know. Yeah, however long it takes for for Jordan to become convinced that he has a decent shot at 217, or as some others put it, maybe 200.
Probably at this point feels like he's close enough to put it on the floor and really put the pressure on those people.
Okay.
Make them say out
That's
loud.
right. That sounds
and
like
he thinks that that's going to be the thing that does it.
Yeah, and I guess nobody outright predicting him to win on the first ballot, even those very close to him. So that's rather, it's a concession to reality for the first time in years for some of them. But
yeah,
but they wouldn't. Their hope is that maybe a bunch of people change their minds anyway.
Which is entirely possible because this all depends on the tensile strength of a supposed moderate
Yeesh.
Republican spine.
Yeah.
Which is,
So that doesnn't seem likely.
So.
Yeah. And I see you embedded Sahil Kapoor's tweet. Today is World Spine Day, or I guess yesterday was.
That was yesterday.
Oh, well. So today you can do whatever you want.
When you see the likes of Sahil, he's a good reporter. I mean, he started with Talking Points Memo, but he turned pretty traditional establishment media. When you see somebody like him saying, okay, this has really gotten to the point that it's mockable.
Yeah.
They're ridiculous.
All right. Well, Spine Day is over, so they can do anything they want now. And, I think this more or less sets it up right. It's entirely possible that they will get it done today, whether a first ballot thing or not. But then I did read a lot about the other dynamic is that there are other people who say, well, I'll only vote for Jordan on the first ballot. If he doesn't win on the first ballot, I might. Yeah. But then they didn't say exactly what they would do.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there is that other alternative out there that is salvageable for them. They've got the possibility of figuring out how to keep McHenry there, at least temporarily,
okay,
with limited powers. But how they can use McHenry being in the seat to do the critical stuff. Because Democrats have started talking about being amenable to that.
Okay.
In a limited way.
Yeah, I can see why they would want to do that. There are some things that they worry that they don't have the authority to do, but they can give themselves the authority to do, or granted to McCarthy or McHenry.
McHenry, yeah.
Well, granted to McCarthy. Go ahead.
They don't trust really a whole lot more than McCarthy.
Sure.
For lots of good reasons, but just to have somebody sitting in the seat. And letting them do things like vote on another continuing resolution, which all of a sudden Jordan is for, apparently.
Yeah. Isn't that something? That is amazing. But I guess to be expected. I mean, if he thinks he's going to get the job and keep it, I suppose that's what makes you look like a serious legislator, even if you've never legislated.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got to be pissing McCarthy off, though.
Yeah, a little bit. And maybe even a couple of the other Freedom Caucus people who are like, well, wait a second. I I'm against this still. Nobody told me I was supposed to be for it now, although
Yeah.
I think in a Freedom Caucus meeting you could probably persuade them.
If it's coming from Jim Jordan, he's
Yeah.
their guy. So, okay, we can be for them now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and
It's not like they're really operating on principle here.
no. And the likelihood even of being asked by local reporters, well, you were against the CR, and then the substance of the CR hasn't changed, and now you're for it. Can you explain that? They would either say, well, the substance has changed, or they could say, I don't know, fentanyl, and that's it. Jim Jordan says he's for it now, and I trust him, and then they'll ask no further questions. So I guess, well, the good news would be that the government might not shut down a second time. But then what would we have to talk about on Tuesdays? But, yeah, I guess it's possible. There may be substantive changes that he has in mind to the CR, but he's not saying as much. But that's the real fear, is I don't want to live to have to find out what Jim Jordan is going to try and get passed in the CR.
It's not going to be good, I don't think. In terms of anything being actually funded except the Defense Department and Israel.
Yeah. I did see somebody reporting that there might be some agreement to say, well, they might be able to sneak by linking Ukraine funding to Israel funding and sort of pairing it together. And I don't know whether Jordan is on the record as saying yes or no to that. I can't recall what
he ignored the question.
Oh, all right. Well,
just talked about funding for Israel.
I see. Well, that's his specialty, is ignoring extraordinarily important and dangerous things happening in the room.
Yes.
So, all right, I guess he's used to that. All right. Well, so we may end up seeing him, who knows? This will probably stretch out a little bit, but yeah, I would think that the Republicans are just tired of looking foolish and disorganized, and so they'll just go with foolish.
That's been my thinking, yeah. And dangerous.
Yeah, okay. So foolish and dangerous, but organized.
They do have to know that
even crime is organized.
It makes running against them for Democrats much, much easier.
Yes.
As they put Jim Jordan in the chair.
Yeah. The danger is that it will become so easy that the Democrats will fail to do it. Oh, well, we'll definitely win because Jim Jordan's in the chair. Yes, and that means that what?
I don't think that's going to be true looking at how the Democrats have held together thus far.
Good. I hope not.
They're already campaigning on Jordan.
And, they have been forthright and unafraid to call him what he is, even though apparently there's some pearl clutching about it in the press ranks.
Who
made the comments?
Yeah. Number one from PBS.
Yes.
They called him an insurrectionist twice.
Yeah, right. I saw who said it? Who said insurrectionist? I don't know.
All of them.
Oh, I mean, they should, but I thought it sounded like she was saying just one
Friday
person
afternoon after it became clear that Jordan didn't have the votes. They weren't going to be having a vote until this week.
Okay.
There was a Democratic press conference when a very big chunk of them stood on the Capitol steps and talked about Jim Jordan, the insurrectionist. And it was great to see.
And true. And they should be doing. Okay, that's good. That's a relief. It wasn't just. I know she was getting all upset, but I was like, is it what? One member said it twice? I mean, that's not enough. Right.
No, that is the message from Democrats. And no, we are not responsible for what Republicans do to each other.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That one might be sinking through a little bit. Not if you watch Kristen. I have the hardest time with that name. Kristen Welker on Meet the Press, who...
She's not getting that?
No. Surprise, surprise.
Well, that is odd.
Insisting over and over and over again in her interview with Jeffries on Sunday that he personally is responsible for what happened to Kevin McCarthy.
As opposed to Kevin McCarthy being responsible for it.
Yeah.
That is odd.
The Republicans who did this to him.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. All right, I'm glad it's sinking in elsewhere, That's good news. And I think you're right. I do see them sort of slowly coming around to that. I guess the timing was just, the times demanded a contrarian view because it was a confusing thing that nobody knew what to do with. So you write the contrarian article. Well, it's really the Democrats who are at fault.
Really, the Democrats. Yeah. And Punchbowl, interestingly enough, may have helped with this a little bit with an interview with Jeffries last night, who said there is no difference between McCarthy and Scalise. Or not Scalise, Jordan.
Okay. Well,
there really isn't a difference here. So stop it.
Yeah.
Stop.
Well, he's made a good point, and we all know Jordan, I think, through and through here. And I hope they take the opportunity not only to continue to label him as an insurrectionist, but also, bring up his past, of course, with Ohio State and find
that
the right
yes.
terminology if you're concerned about such things. But honestly,
I like Brian Beutler's idea.
Yeah, I did too.
Have all of those wrestlers sitting in the room today, sitting in the gallery today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short notice. I don't know if they can get any of them here, but maybe some of the cops from January 6th, he also
them too,
suggested as well.
Yeah,
good. All right. And make Republicans gavel them down for shouting shame from the balcony, probably is what they ought to be doing. But I thought an excellent suggestion, and right out of the Trump playbook, so they can't pretend that they don't know what it means to have those guests in the gallery. So we probably won't see that much, but all right, we'll check in with you.
You can follow along.
All right, you'll be covering that today
on the live blog at Daily Ghost.
Okay.
At noon Eastern.
All right, good luck. Maybe some sedatives or some sort of stomach remedies you might need.
From netrootsradio.com.
Okay, hold it together. Good luck.
To Kagro.
And we'll be watching.
I'll do my best.
With David Waldman.
All right, and sorry to make you shout over the loud music here, but that's, I don't know, that's the exit music we have chosen to go with. Sometimes you hold out for the music you might choose to have at a future date. It doesn't always work. But what's coming at a future date in a future minute? The West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy takes you into the next hour. Stay tuned.